Are we on? I think we're on. Okay. So I'm Frogs. Um, on this channel, I've been known as other things. Um, when it was more primarily skits and commentary. Um, since then, I had uh, started streaming on Twitch. Um, then I decided to stop for personal reasons and have been on YouTube doing streams. But I also like don't want to let go of like content that I want to create, I guess, whatever. Well, not a content creator, but creating content, whatever. Of making videos about things that I care about. Um, so if you're a returning viewer and you're used to my like more laid back, silly streams, this video will be different. And for any newcomers who maybe haven't watched my other content but happen to click on here for some reason, be forewarned, I will be talking about topics that, I don't know, possibly people won't agree with. With the political climate right now, things are rough, to put it the most mildly. With that said, if that's something you're not interested in, you don't want to hear about it, you're trying to stay away from politics, I will click out of this video right now. Alright, let's get on to it. So, I just wanted to make this video. It was inspired by something that happened to me today. And of course, I'm always thinking about things related to like critical consciousness, society, inequity, justice, things like that, because I studied sociology and also social work, so these things are important to me. But yeah, I just, I don't know, I just felt like talking about it and posting. So yeah, if you're here to, in good faith, thank you for being here. And I hope to see you on other things that I make. Okay, so I went to the grocery store today. I have a thing called a trolley dolly cart that I like to use because I don't drive. I'm scared of driving. And so I'm like, I need to do groceries. So I went to self-checkout. There was someone standing like near the self-checkout who I said, have a nice day. No response. Just no response, no acknowledgement. And I get it, whatever. Like, people in retail, they kind of just maybe expect that patrons will not say anything to them, so they just kind of, tune it out. Okay. I'm just like, that's how I interpreted that situation. And then I was in the area right outside where you put away the carts, about to pack up my stuff, and and she asked me, "Did you pay for that?" Or, well, no, she asked, "Did you go through the checkout?" Which basically is, "Did you pay for that?" Which also is, are you stealing? Without saying it. To which I was not happy being potentially accused without the words of stealing. Who on earth walks out of a grocery store with a cart full of groceries and thinks, yeah, I'm totally gonna get away with this? I It was so confusing, and she didn't even walk up to me or anything. She didn't have the decency to do that. just from like across. It's like, did you go through the checkout? And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? And I was like, I have a receipt. Yeah, I did. Didn't even look at it. I'm like, if you're so concerned, why not go the extra mile and look at my receipt? Yeah, because, you know, you kind of look bad right now. Wouldn't the alarm for the store have gone off if I hadn't paid for anything? Pretty sure. Yeah. And there was this other patron standing nearby. I'm like, is she accusing me of stealing? Bruh. Yeah. You know, it's sad to say that I think if I was white, she probably wouldn't have flagged me down. I'm like, bro, you didn't even see me when I was right in front of your face, but all of a sudden, oh, that person, I don't think they paid for this. Bro, pay the fuck attention, alright? Maybe acknowledge another human in your presence. I don't know, maybe she didn't hear me. Maybe she thought because I didn't have grocery bags, maybe assumed like, oh, wait, did you pay for that? Again, there are many ways that would have been prevented. The number one being the alarm going off. But it didn't, so there was no reason to suspect. Now, well, what did I do? I didn't really do anything. Like, in my mind, I'm like, yo, you're being kind of racist right now. The people who might not agree would be like, no, she was just doing her job. But the way that we perceive and react to, you know, situations are underlying beliefs and ideologies about your external world. And maybe they're not at the forefront, maybe you're not saying it in plain language, but it's beneath the surface. And I have like a little whiteboard contraption thing that I came up with, I guess, kind of to like convey what I'm saying. So for this video, I'm just gonna be focusing on like race. This is not meant to be in-depth or anything like that, but just kind of the seemingly benign nature, like, you know, with that situation, you know, could be perceived as harmless depending on who you're talking to, but others may be able to see plain as day, like, hey, you know, that person kind of has some kind of racial bias. Maybe she's not an extremist, certainly not. I wouldn't say that, but you know, both are not good. Racist light, prejudice, extremist, none of those are good. I'm just saying. Alright, so this is my handy dandy board, and oh shit, you can see the reflection. Let me try to move my laptop. Yeah. Okay, scuff. Uh-oh. Okay, I just unplugged my laptop. That's why the music cut out. Sorry. Okay. This is what I have. Right? At the very top, it says racial consciousness spectrum. On one end, you see critical consciousness, and it's also been known as CRT. Critical, well, no, not, well, let's not say that. Well, associated, I would say. Critical race theory. But for my sake, or for the purposes of this video, and this the spectrum that I'm presenting, On one end, we have the critical consciousness. In this case, around race. Going towards the right, you see kind of like some awareness, maybe not as nuanced, where you understand like how systems and institutions are crafted in such a way that that they propagate racism, to put it shortly. I promise I'm not trying to hide behind the board. It's just an easier place for me to put it so you can see what I'm talking about. All right, and then going more to the right, it good to get a little closer. Get a little closer. Where you're like less aware. You got some unconscious bias going on, which is what I would categorize that situation I had. You're not really as privy to like racial issues. You're kind of a little apolitical. You're like, let's not make everything about race. You know, race that's done. You kind of that's what's sort of going on. And then continuing down the line, you got kind of like quiet racial prejudice, where you're not saying, you know, you're not stating yourself out loud, but you're like, you hold racist stereotypes about people. You may not find racist jokes, you know, offensive, quote unquote offensive. I really don't like that word. I am at a loss trying to think of a better word that isn't so like dismissive of like what it means when people engage in that. And you know, you might not agree. You may be watching this and be like, you lost me there. I don't agree with you. Okay, whatever. I'm not gonna force you to agree with me. That's not my point here. Alright, you're gonna take away whatever you're gonna take away. You will leave whatever you want to leave. That's up to you. Going more to the right, holding racist beliefs. They're textbook racist. You think that your race is above all other races. And historically, it's been white people at the top and them viewing everybody else at the bottom. Case in point, Jim Crow, slavery, racist or scientific racism, where they're like, oh, like the size of your skull, like that, you know, is associated with this race of people, and that translates to their intelligence or lack thereof. Sickening. One of the first times that I encountered such beliefs was, believe it or not, on like was it Xbox 3? No, not Xbox, PlayStation 3. I was like chatting with somebody and they were like spouting this bullshit, and I'm like, and me in like such good faith was trying to like reason with this person, not yet knowing how extreme how extreme people are in their beliefs about race, because I wasn't raised around that. That's not stuff that was imparted on me. I'm not saying that my family was progressive at all, but it's not something that I was being taught, not at home and not at school. So I was like, damn, people think these things. It was a shock to me. And then all the way to the right, you got extremists, white supremacy, KKK, all all those types of beliefs and organizations, hate groups, where they're like view themselves as like victims, like, oh my gosh, all these people are taking away our opportunities, our jobs, and all the rest. Actively commit violence, propagate lies through the media, and just have just involved in the most heinous things. And I guess sometimes when people are like, no, I'm not racist, this is what they're saying. They're like, well, I'm not this, I'm not extremist. But being around here, you know, not great, not a good look. Open your mind. Okay, anyway, why is there a bus? You're probably wondering. Okay, so I have whole conversations in my head where I'm like come up with like examples, I guess, to kind of illustrate like a point, like kind of like take apart a situation, because sociology, that's just what I do. All right, so I take the bus. You know, I've been on the bus where sometimes someone will get on and they don't smell very pleasant. Not that their perfume or anything like that is like strong or something like that. They just smell like maybe like they smell heavily of body odor. And on my part, no judgment, you know. I might, at first, my first reaction might be like, oh, whoa, like, you know, like, surprised, like, not expecting such a strong odor. But, you know, there are different ways that people may exist in that situation, which, you know, you're probably wondering. Well, maybe you're not wondering, but I'll tell you why there's a triangle here. Okay, so at the very top of this triangle, I kind of was thinking about like that iceberg, like the ego and the id or whatever, but I'm not using those terms or that example. But at the very tippy top is the surface. So that's an observation you're making. In this case, probably the scent. Okay, in this case, the scent. Going below that is your perception. Like, how are you perceiving, let's say you're person A, and then person B is the person who got on, who may smell unpleasant. And again, not saying it in a negative way, personally, because that's just rude. This is rude. You can't make assumptions. Okay? And below that is the underlying ideologies and beliefs. Okay? And I have like a little handy dandy. I know it's sloppy. I am left-handed, so I have a hard time with whiteboards. Okay. So I got some different scenarios of reactions. This is not all the reactions that somebody could have, but it's kind of informed by, sorry, I'm like gonna go back up. Kind of informed by this spectrum that I talked about. Okay. Reaction 1. You notice it. Okay, and in that noticing, that person may contextualize. Be like, well, maybe this person could be unhoused and hasn't had access to a place where they could bathe or bathe safely, because, you know, maybe there are places where you can, but it's not safe. Or they're in a difficult financial situation where they can't afford hygienic products. Maybe they're disabled and have a hard time cleaning themselves and don't really have support. You know, kind of just try to empathize and see that person as a human instead of like the knee-jerk reaction being like, oh, you're disgusting. All right. So the underlying belief, possibly, or ideology is an awareness of systems of oppression and marginalization and, well, I didn't write it here, but like, you know, inequity and issues with housing and everything just being so expensive. And it's like, you know, if you're struggling, you know, in your own way, like, don't see yourself as the only one struggling. Everybody's going through their own struggles in their own ways. And like, the most basic thing you can do is treat another person as a human being with respect and dignity. Okay, another possible reaction. You notice it, right? You're indifferent. You kind of just are like, you know, I expect this. This is public transit. Like, they're gonna be smells. And so you're not really bothered. You just don't really have an opinion. And, well, for the first reaction, maybe you might not like it, but you're not gonna be like, oh my god, this is horrible, you know? Or maybe yes, but like not, but like just because you're, I don't know. The reaction is, it just really depends. Like, that doesn't make you a bad person if you dislike how someone may smell, like if it's like heavily of body odor. Like, you're allowed to like be like, oh, like, I don't really like that. But where it gets into like negative territory, I guess, is where you perceive the person in a negative way instead of trying to understand them, or maybe just mind your own business and don't be rude. I don't know. Okay. Then there's another reaction where you may dislike it. You're like, ugh. Like, that's your reaction. Ew. Right? So, you're bothered, and it may be like your thoughts may have some negative connotations. You may be making some kind of overgeneralization. So you'll think of the scent, you'll have an aversion to it, and then you'll have like some kind of racial bias laid in there. What do I mean? The one off the top of my head, which I hate when people do this, is where they have negative connotations about Indian people and eating curry, and how they think, oh my god, like, the smell of cumin is gross. Okay, there are people that are aware, they know that cumin can have a very potent smell. Some even acknowledge, like, it smells a little bit like body odor. But it's like, it's whatever, everything has a smell. Like, it's not even a big deal, so don't make it one. And using that as like, well, you know, a stereotype. Okay, so what? People eat curry. And then, you know, just... So that kind of is going into that part of the spectrum where it's like the, I guess, quiet racist racial prejudice. you know, this person may not be, yeah, oops, sorry, like full on racist or whatever, even though that's kind of like a racist belief. But yeah, they may lean towards like these perceptions, like, or beliefs that like everybody needs to practice hygiene and pick yourself up by the bootstraps. Like, people don't have an excuse to be stinky. I think that's not what I think, but you know, maybe coming from like those may be like the underlying beliefs or ideologies in that kind of reaction. Which, you know, that fails to acknowledge any nuance. That's just an overgeneralization, and overgeneralizations are just not good because they lack critical thought, and they're a lot of the times they're things that people just repeat from news outlets that want to promote racist ideas, prejudice, propaganda, things like that, that paint an entire group of people negatively. And not only that, that leads to people being like, oh yeah, this group of people is undeserving of rights, of protection, of opportunities. Like, this should, it snowballs. And history has shown that, has shown the atrocities of such beliefs. Alright, and then the last reaction that I have on here is disgusted. Like, you just see that person as abject. You're like, oh my god, wow, how disgusting. Not just the smell, but the person themselves. That's a little bit more generalized, but in the middle of this chart, like the last row, I have person A. Let's say they're white, and person B is also white. In that situation, there will be a absence of racial bias, because they're both white. They're both white. They have the same skin color. And now that could be an overgeneralization, but more often than not, there's going to be an absence of that racial bias because you share the same color. Now, if person A, for some reason, holds the belief that, you know, or it holds classist beliefs, they may see this person, sadly, is like, oh, like, ugh, gross, white trash. Like, that's a negative reaction that could come from that. Or otherwise, maybe there's just the reaction of, you don't smell great. Maybe you should practice some hygiene. But, you know, with it, like, if the person is classist, yeah, they might have that stereotype, which is also not good. Like, yeah, maybe there's an absence of the racial aspect, or the racist aspect, but like, you know, this could be expounded upon with other identities like disability, age, and gender, and whatever. But I'm just kind of, I'm not expanding further on that. It's not really what this video is necessarily, but well, that's called you know, intersectionality, where you're looking at all different kinds of identities. There's so many different combinations. And, you know, depending on the combination that you are, you're gonna walk in the world differently. And the world will regard you differently. Whether that's for the better or for the worse. So yeah, in this case, the classist person, A, yeah, that's fucked up. Like, lift people up, don't put them down, right? But, you know, that mentality, I think at its core, its aim is to distance. You just, you don't want to have any proximity to identities that are perceived as undesirable. You know, stay as far away from it as possible. All right. Next scenario. You got person A, still white. Person B, who is, well, I put here BIPOC, which is Black, Indigenous, person of color. In this case, someone with, you know, with extremist ideology beliefs, which is what I meant this for. I meant for it for like the bottom example, for the BIPOC example, as the underlying, or maybe not so much underlying. At that point, it's blatant. At that point, it's blatant. Alright. But I don't know. I kind of latched onto the underlying because sometimes people try to gaslight you and be like, well, I didn't say that. What? You're calling me racist, but I didn't say that. Like, no. If you really peel back the layers, it's there. Alright. Okay, anyway. BIPOC. There'll be a severe aversion. Like, you look at this person with disgust. And to that I say, you're an awful person. Like, what is wrong with you? And then the belief being that one's in-group, which is, you know, the in-group of person A is, you know, white people. Their view, their belief is that their in-group is superior to the out-group. Also known as white supremacy. But let me put that down. The hard thing about that is that you know, you got people who are like, well, whoa, I'm not racist, but then you have proud racists who will be like, yeah, I'm racist and I'm proud. I'm not, all right. That's really fucked up. And they see nothing wrong with it. They see nothing wrong with that, therefore they see nothing wrong with their beliefs, and it's really hard to get through to these people because they don't want that in the first place. And a lot of people talk about like pipelines. Those things could be scary because the internet is filled with so many different people with different points of view, and it just, yeah, you know, it's like algorithms and like, you know, like what will people latch onto that help them, or not help them, that will inform how they interact with other people. That's why I'm saying like, oh, like if you're like racist light or just like, oh, well, I'm just a little bit prejudiced. I just don't really know. I'm not really informed. Like that's why those things are not good either, because then you just get further and further to the other way, because that's such a it's those messages are very prevalent in society. And I remember in an English class like learning about like George Lakoff, and you probably don't know the guy, but he had written an essay or something like that, or a piece about how the right like they got framing down. Like they make their frame so simplistic that like someone like for them like the message that they're receiving will just click, because it like, well, for example, like with like immigration, like people would be like on like the news or something, immigrants are taking jobs, and like that's the reason why you don't have a job, so to stop that we have to deport everybody because they're all criminals. See, when you think like that, that doesn't require critical thought. It doesn't require like actually like practicing any empathy, or a willingness to like understand people outside of your group. It just sounds so simple, like an easy fix to things that might not even affect you. Like you might not even be hurting for that I don't know, manufacturing job. It's just because someone told you like this is the enemy, and it's just kind of like we're mob mentality, where it's just like, I don't get it. This shit doesn't affect you. The way they're saying it, you're just latching onto it to justify. And if you're even like in that camp of people, because some people they don't need justification, but for those that need justification, they will latch onto that propaganda. But yeah, I think it's important to think about what is beneath like a person's perception of something, like going all the way back around to like the situation I was in. Maybe this person this employee, she didn't say like, oh, you're stealing. She didn't have to. That's the thing, she didn't have to. It's implied. Did you go through the checkout? If you go through the checkout, that means you had to have paid. But the assumption was, you probably didn't. Okay, why would you think that? Why would you think that? The point is, you gotta examine the things that you say, because once you like stop doing that, then you do stuff like that where you just feign ignorance, or just outright deny what is there. You live an unexamined life. And yeah, I also like philosophy, so I think existentially. But yeah, anyway, it's not even the worst that could happen. The situation could have been a lot worse. But, you know, it depends on the person, too. It's, you know, doing the accusing. And also the identity of the other person. So I was lucky, you know, it's not really the worst situation ever. But that doesn't make it right. Because once you accept a little bit of like prejudice, stereotyping, discrimination, if there's any part of it that you're okay with, that easily just, like I said, it snowballs until it becomes something that is extreme and makes life unlivable for people. So maybe you'll see, you'll think about people, if you do, overseas and be like, well, at least I'm not them. Like just, you know, this distancing. Like, oh, they only get paid like a few cents and they have to, or per hour, and they work long hours and there's a lot of human rights abuses. Yo, if we're allowing that, you think you're safe? Think again. If you allow that, nobody's safe. Who's to say that, you know, your job will be secure or your rights will remain intact? Who's to say? Don't think yourself better. Don't think yourself as safe. So I gotta stand up. Gotta rise up. Gotta you know, gotta give a fuck, right? Gotta give a fuck. Because if you don't, and then you're in a situation, you'd be like, damn, why doesn't anybody care? Well, did you care before? No. So you don't have to be personally affected by something to care about it at the end of the day. Anyway, that's all for me. I'm very long-winded. And like scattered. But hopefully you were able to follow most or some of what I said. If you made it this far and you're just seething, take a breath, alright? Take a breath, man. I'm not telling you to agree with me. Take a walk. Or you know, or however you move. Go move. Or if you can't, I don't know, just breathe. I don't know. Whatever can help quell the anger that you feel. Except for berating me in the comment section. That's an instant ban and a report. You really want that, just move on with your day, right? Well, that's all for me. I don't know when I'll post something like this again. I don't post a lot of commentary anymore just because I get nervous about, I guess, saying the wrong thing, but I mean, we all say the wrong things sometimes, and what matters is the desire to change and be better. But yeah, I hope that, you know, you, dear viewer, that you be good to yourself and to others. Bye.